So I think there's a major problem here. Elimination Chamber was watchable, and it was only like a last of like 2 hours of the pay per view. There was the Raw Women's match canceled because uh Lacey Evans pregnant. They couldn't find a suitable contender, and they couldn't even make a qualifying match. Who else would face Asuka on the pay per view on the kickoff show? We had a four-way bout to see who would take Keith Lee's badass place for the three-way later in the show. John Morrison won, by the way. We are so like the show was not terrible at any means, except probably the ending and possibly the women's match wasn't that exciting. But if you have to tell me that the only way to hype up over your show, to kick off any part of the show, wasn't the three-way, wasn't the women's tag, to get over the two Elimination Chamber matches, it was the Chamber match itself. It was a SmackDown Chamber match against all 6 mid-carders. The match was fun. There were some cool spots. Cesaro like spinning out everybody, European uppercutting the whole place. Kevin Owens doing a senton on the Chamber. Jey Uso hooking Kevin Owens' arm on the Chamber. Like, there were some really fun spots, but we just knew the inevitable. Roman Reigns was gonna win either way because of the way he set it up, and it was just all going against his plan. I just called that Daniel Bryan was gonna win anyway because they just needed a suitable underdog babyface to overcome a disadvantage, like going over a Chamber match, then having to face off against Roman Reigns. Then Edge spears Roman after beating Daniel Bryan, after what looked to be a close chance of getting the yes lock on him, then pummeling him down and then hitting him up with the guillotine chokehold. Well, Edge comes with the spear. Fun way to open up the show. I thought it was the best couple minutes. So it looks like Edge got his number, and I thought this was borderline predictable because of her most of the focus. Edge thought, people already, Roman Reigns looked a bit more desperate trying to get a match over Edge than everybody else. And people kept complaining. He's like, spear versus spear. Like, I think this is by the fans' mentality. Because, like, we already know the story already implemented around Edge and Roman. Edge is trying to redeem himself after, like, a decade absence from television. From pro wrestling scene. Yes, you've seen him on television before, visiting an anniversary or special occasions. But, like, he hasn't wrestled since Mania 27. The same time when Miz was last time a world champion. He lost at Extreme Rules, but I digress. But he's coming after another injury-prone. Like, Edge has had injuries that cost him nearly a year of his career. This cost him near decades. He finally comes back in his second Rumble, wins it, and gets pushed over to face off against any world champion. And people were complaining, like, oh, so what's in the benefit if the top guy won? Okay, you take it like any other guy who won the Rumble didn't win the world title. Edge won the 2010 Rumble when he came back off another ACL tear. Guess what? He lost against Jericho at Mania 26. There's many other stuff that could happen. It's getting the other guy over and telling a digressing story. If Roman Reigns wins, he beats a Hall of Famer. I don't get this benefit here. The cost is you get to see Edge at Mania. I don't get it. I don't get the complaints. And people are like, oh, why don't Edge try to get somebody from Finn Balor? Isn't Finn Balor, like, decreased his value to be watched by people in 600,000 viewership now? That's not going to boost up the viewership that people are going to think, hey, who's this skinny midget Edge is spearing? Like, no one's going to watch that. I get why people want to see that, but it's like the minority viewership. People are going to be more excited to see, like, the top dominating heel on SmackDown get outsmarted by a freaking legend of the business and who people actually know. Because nobody on the SmackDown brand can actually draw an interesting story with Roman Reigns, or else we're going to see Goldberg versus Roman Reigns again. And I think that nobody was a waste time on Goldberg dying. Or if we do Lesnar, people are just going to get tired out again because it's going to be another Mania match involving Lesnar and Roman. So I thought this was the best way to go. Because Raw has more star power than SmackDown. We also had Asuka So Asuka was kept off the show because of the. She also suffered an injury. Oh, so Keith Lee got injured, and Asuka was kept out of the show because the absence of Lacey Evans. So we also had I think we had the women's tag title match. We had the U.S. title match. The last match was the chamber match. I gotta say that at least the three-way was one of my funnest, also a good match. I love the Starship Pain. Lashley was actually looking more dominative. I thought it was a dumb idea to like inconsistent booking. Like probably people like Riddle because he has long hair and he's skinny and with no actual charm. Over than he's just an NXT guy, and then a couple months later, you guys will complain to release him because they know WWE's ruining. No, because he really doesn't support that much of television skill, and the guy's just not that entertaining. And plus, he's been already jobbing out to the Hurt Business and losing every match he has, other than a multi-man tag match. That's the only time Riddle actually looked beatable, but that was requiring help, so it didn't make him look strong. And plus, like, Keith Lee beat him in a contenders match, showing that he shouldn't even be given an opportunity, other than they just wanted a way for Riddle to still have an excuse to be on television. That's just my reasoning. I don't really find interest in giving him the U.S. title, and possibly it's gonna be some lackluster long reign or a lackluster short reign. Other than that, hopefully they at least give him a winning streak. Or they're possibly just going to make him drop it to somebody in Fastlane. I don't know why you need another pay-per-view. It used to be just... Back in the day, it used to be just Mania and No Way Out. And we just needed a couple months of build to secure and build up most of our card. You can't just add another pay-per-view to subdue. And WWE is just more secluding into it. Like, by God, it's so bad. It's almost... WWE is like the EA Sports of wrestling. Is like it's now quantity over quality instead of quality over quantity, because you need time to actually build up over your Mania card, and it's been showing over lackluster viewership and just the overall build that we are relying more on Goldberg and Lesnar to actually secure an outside audience outside of our own fans, and no one's gonna care about whoever Rollins or Roman is facing. Because we are now being so niche now, where that we're still relying on 50-year-olds to make buys for pay-per-views. Seriously, I think I remember my favorite match from Mania last year was the Boneyard match involving The Undertaker and AJ Styles. Styles is still pushing up to near his mid-40s, and Undertaker's in his 50s. And at least I liked the Boneyard match. Undertaker looked like a badass. He brought back the biker. All this light show, awesome, looking like a badass, burying Styles alive, like all that cool stuff. Yes, I thought it was lackluster. We also had the women's tag team match, and everything was going good. Decent Meteora, a gorilla press, and toss Sasha Banks over Bianca Belair. There were some average big boots. Shayna Baszler doing the same old, I'll try to break the arm, but we'll barely sell it type of deal. Then Reginald was coming in. He was even up backstage hyping up Sasha Banks in her match. So I guess this is selling over some type of little crush that she's having or admirement of Sasha Banks. He came around with wine glasses and stuff over the celebration. Nia Jax took advantage, and then Nia Jax and Shayna retained. And I think my heart just got slower. So that's practically the match. We had no title changes at this point except the United States title. And then we also had Miz segments involving Bad Bunny saying he'll be defending his 24/7. He didn't defend it. There was not even a backstage segment. The pay-per-view was as short as anything else we've had over the last several months. And there wasn't even a segment involving him and R-Truth. I don't even know what was the point of this other than we just need Bad Bunny on television, pay-per-view to at least have some reason for other people to watch. And somehow the Miz that dresses like Sage Mode is like the biggest contrast threat. Like nobody on the wrestling roster, like a literal just some Spanish musician, is in Miz's shit list. It's so dumb. It's so boring. It's so mid-cardy. Like, I get that people know, most people know who Bad Bunny is, but to have him with this permanent mid-carder like The Miz, it's fucking boring. And I'll get more into this when we head over to our main event of the evening. It will be for the WWE Championship. It was Sheamus, every previous WWE champion, involving McIntyre, Sheamus, AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Kofi Kingston. And the match was okay. I liked the match. Even the ending was pretty cool. A mid-air Claymore kick, catching AJ Styles before the phenomenal forearm. Good counters over with Jeff Hardy. I thought the Whisper in the Winds was pretty obvious. I knew there was going to be a multi-man top chamber spot. Everybody's like, oh, they fall everywhere. Bro kick out of nowhere, catching Kofi. Yeah, somehow Orton got eliminated real quick over a surprise roll-up from Kofi. And Kofi never said stupid. Like, they actually think, like, that Orton and Kofi match was that memorable other than the boom drop spot. Other than that, shit. Yeah. I guess, like, Sheamus was at least having some eliminations. Didn't look that realistic over the time that, Sheamus was just the impulsive, dumb friend that we just now know that these men had a relationship for 20 years, but they barely had much time over to build on that, and they just forced the chamber spot. None of this felt like these guys are actually etching over the world title, thanks to we've seen already multi-month feuds that felt underwhelmingly boring, in my opinion. If people are going to be like, oh, but Kofi deserves it. Why? Or Randy deserves it. And it doesn't even feel like it's even that much over a story. The chamber match on SmackDown was good, but it didn't feel like it should be a chamber match. It feels like it could have just been a 6-pack elimination challenge, and we could have done fine with that. At least there was I understand the title, they got a title shot afterwards, but they're already in an obvious disadvantage, and they're obviously trying to sell over the Edge match. And Raw, on the other hand, most of these, we knew that McIntyre was going to retain, because other than that, we'll just get boring television. Kofi and Jeff weren't going to win. Sheamus and Randy would give us the same old crap. It would just be predictable. So obviously, it's going to make Edge Miz cash in after the match. Backstage, there was also Miz talking to MVP, so obviously he did something to get Lashley to cooperate and help him spear and give the Hurt Lock over to McIntyre, knocking him out good enough to hit the DDT and then a skull-crushing finale. Miz is your new WWE champion, and I'm pissed. I swear to you. I mean, I don't hate the Miz. He's like a good hand to have in your mid-card, and people were like, oh my god, Miz had a great 2016. You're praising him for like 1 month. He had like 1 or 2 decent months. And most whenever people reference his promo on Talking Smack and like a few matches with Dolph Ziggler, how do you want to get remembered over matches with Dolph Ziggler? Second of all, nobody remembers the spot whenever they talk about Ziggler's feud with freaking Miz. Nobody remembers either that promo other than Ziggler screaming his heart out and Ziggler actually being the MVP over in the feud. And Styles was just being irrelevant because he's an irrelevant midget world champion. I hate how people always portray the Miz as this underhanded, underappreciated world champion. This guy's an irrelevant world champion. And he was only being perceived on television because he was the only relevant champion over at the time. Because we had too many mid-carders as world champions. We had Ziggler and Ambrose feuding for the world title. That wasn't perceiving any type of attention. And then people complained about... I've never heard people complain about Miz getting underutilized when he went to Raw. People always bring up over, like, he was being underachieved on back in 2011. Then he also, like, tagged with R-Truth and was feuding against The Rock and Cena. This guy is an overrated talker. He's barely going to give you any other drawback other than this low-titty dude with lackluster charisma or star power, and he's possibly going to get a short reign anyway. I don't think The Miz is that terrible, but if anybody perceives him as a guy that's more deserving of world titles than Lashley, McIntyre, Hardy, or Orton, I think you have some kind of screws loose or something, or you just like forcibly making Mid Carter's world champion, all because you guys remember him for over a decade, but don't remember a crap load of his feuds. They've been borderline forgettable. The only feud that people actually even fondly remember over with The Miz, other than the Ziggler one from 2016, that only lasted over 2 months, and them hot potatoing the IC belt, was I guess his feud with Daniel Bryan. The Cena one was just just foreshadowing of The Rock and him. No one really cared about how The Miz was going to be world champion. Plus, he dropped it after Mania at Extreme Rules. I think it was also because of his concussion, but they made it a steel cage 3-way involving Morrison. Just a dumb lower pitched Mid Carter that doesn't deserve the belt. There could have been many other options that they could have had, just writing themselves over in the wall. The show was not terrible at any means. It was actually a decent rewatchable show, but it just felt like there should be only one chamber match. Some of the matches had to be canceled off bat. That you could have just made just a stupid special on Raw. Not like, I hate whenever you make your pay-per-view title the literal match stipulation. It just doesn't. It devalues the match stipulation in general. Because over your standpoint, you're feeling like, okay, you're making something that felt like there should be only one match about from back in the day. Like there was one Hell in a Cell match back in King of the Ring, and people remember it. Bad Blood, a Hell in a Cell match over for a long-term storyline. And now you put like then over like the 2000s and 2010s. We came from like 2008 when we had Edge and Undertaker SummerSlam 2008 fun match, right? The next year, they did Hell in a Cell literally on pay-per-view, had 3 matches, and barely anybody can remember except the Cena and Orton match, or freaking Punk getting jobbed out by the Undertaker. None of that even felt personal. None of that actually felt interesting, and none of it actually felt violent. That's supposed to be the thing that made Hell in a Cell so more special than any other match stipulation. God, and then we just get these forgettable Hell in a Cell matches, and probably the Shane and Undertaker one that was entertaining because of the spot with the elbow drop off the cage. And I'm supposed to be more interested that there should be more than one match stipulate. It's so dumb. Other than that, this wasn't a bad show, but I just felt like they could have been doing a lot better, especially with the circumstances they had. Rest in peace. I'll pour out some for Keith Lee's push, possibly, because this is his second pay-per-view absence. Even though he'd be winning matches sometimes, he'd be pinning Orton back last October, and then he comes around missing the Royal Rumble and missing the Elimination Chamber pay-per-views. These are the 2 most important pay-per-views before we head over in the Fastlane that I think they should just scrap in general, because Fastlane is terrible. Fastlane, there's never been there have been good matches, but they have been forgettable pay-per-views. Like, you can say, oh, but I remember that match with Jericho and Styles. Oh my god. Okay, was the rest of the show memorable? What's the identity of Fastlane? What's Fastlane supposed to mean? Oh, it's a fast ride to the road to WrestleMania. Stop with this corny crap and actually make Mania more sought after. No one wants to see another pay-per-view. You can take a month off. We only know like 2 matches that are going to be bought after. Nobody else in the main roster haven't even hyped up most of like a quarter year worth of storytelling to hype over the pay-per-view. Stop with all these multi-month pay-per-view guys. You guys can like wait. I guess because of the Peacock deal, but like it's already unsought after to begin with because you forget that Mania's gonna have more eyes on the screen. It makes no sense why we need Fastlane. This is after like 2016, where we had like an assload of pay-per-views. Some were like brand specific. I think I remember. Okay, Rumble, Fastlane, Roadblock. That also involved NXT midgets. WrestleMania, Extreme Rules. I think we also had Payback, Battleground, SummerSlam, Clash of the Champions, Hell in a Cell, Backlash, No Mercy, then Survivor Series, and TLC. No one needs that many pay-per-views. And it's over to even sell your biggest show of the year. And the only thing going on is Bad Bunny, Miz, probably something involving McIntyre and Sheamus, and Edge and Reigns. That's about it, bro. I just don't feel like over the last few years, this has been lackluster Mania build. There's been lackluster reasons to watch the biggest show of the year, and we've been just losing that much star power that will be overly reliant on a freaking developmental brand to at least give us some talent. It's so dumb. Road to WrestleMania feels like a joke now, and is showing over the popularity decline of the WWE. But that's all I gotta say over this small rant. Other than that, Elimination Chamber gets a 7 or 8 out of 10. I think this was a pretty good show. Pretty rewatchable and consumable, at least, even though we had 2 chamber matches. But good to at least see the hype with the Edge and Reigns match, because I actually find that more compelling than whatever else is going on. Miz cashing in was predictable at best, but it better be a short reign, or else people are going to get really bored. And I don't know, man. I just wish some people would understand, like, this is a business. No one's going to really care about what only one or like a few people want to watch. Other than that, that's coming it from me. Like, comment, subscribe. That's it here from the DST show.